All right, guys, we're back with part 2 of this broadcast. I'm so sorry if you guys are new to Adherent Apologetics. This is probably the worst introduction that you've ever seen. My internet connection, usually not this bad. I've had a couple issues before, but 99% of this time this doesn't happen. And then ending the broadcast when I meant to just leave the room, never done that one before. So kind of a rough start, but I appreciate the BK apologist Alfredo Valentin for continue to sticking with me despite all these struggles, man.
Let's go.
As we go through part 2, how are you doing, my guy?
Oh man, I'm good, man. This is fun. I'm definitely enjoying this. Watching Zach versus the internet. It's an amazing thing to watch.
The real struggle isn't Christianity versus Islam or Christianity versus the Hebrew Israelites or Christianity versus atheism. The real struggle is Zach versus the internet.
There you go.
That is the biggest issue in apologetics right now.
Basically.
So what I was going to ask you before we had all the stuff go down was fast forward to where we're at now, and we almost have, like, in some circles it looks like I've seen a couple Christians pushing, not necessarily saying Black Lives Matter. That's kind of the slogan that's always been around with everything that's happening, but is really being considerably pushed now.
Right.
And it's switching to some Christians are pushing the idea they're not going to say Black Lives Matter. They're going to say all lives matter, because they would say, and I think they're coming from good intentions, I would like to believe, but I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on the whole Black Lives Matter, all lives matter? Right. Like, what do you think of what's going on?
Well, again, right, we have to be thoughtful when we have these type of conversations, and one of the things we have to do is define terms, right? When people use particular statements or terms, you need to ask them, well, what do you mean by that? Because there's definitions and then there's connotations of words. So this term, Black Lives Matter, right? I know for me, when I use it, it has nothing to do with the organization. And I think when Christians say that, people automatically think, oh, so you with those guys. It's like, no, I'm definitely not, because there's a lot of things in that organization that I do disagree with as a believer. But, and so once I say that, when I say Black Lives Matter, I'm talking about the actual statement itself. Not the organization, not even the movement, just the statement. Black people have value. And the reason why black people have value is because we're made in the image of the Creator. Right? It's supposed to be an apologetic against the narrative of white supremacy, that I don't matter because I'm black or a particular phenotype that I have. So that's what the intent was of the original statement. Hey guys, I'm God's child too. God made me too. And if God made me too, and I'm also an imager, then you gotta treat me like every other imager of God. Like, that's the point behind that statement. But a lot of times when you have conversations, especially in the internet, there's no tone, right? You can't hear the tone and the expression of the person. So when you just say Black Lives Matter, for a lot of people, they think, oh, there we go, this social justice warrior guy, this liberal Christian, whatever. And it's like, no, this is what I mean when I say Black Lives Matter. I mean, literally, the life of a black person, quote unquote black person, again, because we're not crayons, but, my life matters to the person who made me. And since that same Creator made you, you should respect me too. That's what we're trying to say. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's a lot of good stuff there. A couple things I want to look at with you. I guess we'll just start off with how much are you on Instagram? Like, are you on Instagram on a daily basis?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, all that. TikTok.
Okay. I just got TikTok too. Fun stuff. So I don't know what you saw on Instagram, but if you looked on Instagram yesterday, there was a whole Blackout Tuesday thing where basically everyone was posting just a black photo.
Right.
And with the Black Lives Matter. And there's a couple of things that happened that I'm curious, I'd love your input on. One of which was Ravi Zacharias International Ministries. They posted in respect to that day, and I looked at some of the comments, and they were getting a lot of heat from Christians for posting that. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm curious, like,
what did they say? What was the post about? Do you remember?
It was the post, it was a whole trend, like everyone from The Rock to Tom Brady to.
Oh, you're talking about the whole Blackout Tuesday thing. That's what
Yeah,
I'm talking about.
and then
Yeah.
Robbie, and then the comments from Ravi Zacharias, one of the only Christian ministries that posted in accordance with that thing. They got a lot of heat from that. So I was just curious, like, do you think that's a bad look for Christians when they're
I
not
mean, it's again, right? We have to test all things, right?
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, this is my opinion, I don't think that was the most practical thing to do, especially when there was a lot of primaries and voting going on that day.
Mm-hmm.
So for people not to engage socially online that day made no sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is, let's face it, this is how we interface, especially now during the pandemic. This is all we got right now. I can't meet somebody at the corner coffee shop to have a meeting. It's like it's Zoom or it's not happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to say let's not do that today didn't make sense to me. It's like why we and then for black people to do that, I don't understand that. Like this is our way of disseminating information, getting together, having our group sessions via Zoom or what have you. Why stop that for that day, especially when people are voting that day? It seemed counterintuitive for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I'm just saying, in my opinion, it wasn't the most practical move.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's such a weird, like, it was just hard to know it's just hard to know because each person is going to look at those black posts and they're going to have a different impression of what that means. Like, I
Right.
think for some people, like, I posted something on my personal Instagram, the one that I don't do any of my, just like my, like, hey, hi friends, like stuff like that. And just in respect with that. And I didn't post anything with Adherent Apologetics. I just wasn't sure what to do because it's just, one person can look at that and be like, oh, you're just one of these far left people who are like, and another person can look at you not posting and saying you're one of these far right people that are
Right.
racist. And
Right. Right.
it's just such a complicated issue. And like, I guess that's just a lot of
It's like I
what's
gotta
going
pick a
on.
side.
Mm-hmm.
It's like why do I gotta pick a side? My side is Christ. All that
And
other stuff, is debatable. You know what I mean? It's like when people say, "Well, who are you gonna vote for?" Jesus. I vote for Jesus every 4 years. It's like I just don't, and because of my stance, I catch a lot of heat from both sides.
mm-hmm.
The evangelicals feel like, I'm not totally with them, and the quote unquote black conscious community feel like I'm a sellout, I'm a coon. And it's like, no, I'm trying to be, wherever the Bible leads me, that's where I'm trying to go.
Mm-hmm.
So, but people want you to be on the fringe or on the extreme because it's easy to identify you. Nuance. They hate nuance because that makes people have to think.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't want to think. They want to be able to put you in a box and say, well, this is who he is. And
Mm-hmm.
when they can't do that, they get frustrated with you. So,
Yeah, it's a lot of good points you bring up. I think, yeah, I just see so much that you get forced. That you have to get put in you're either a Republican or a Democrat. You can't share both ideas, especially if
right,
you. I
right,
think one of the a little off topic here, but I think I'm not a big fan of politics. One of the worst things in America is the two-party system because if you want to get into politics, you need to fit into one of those parties,
right,
and then that's how we get this divisive, polarized
right.
climate that we're in
It's
now.
fallacious. It's a false dichotomy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's either one or the other. Who said that?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense. That's not logical,
Yeah.
So,
100. So, what do you think your non-Christian friends, the people that you're interacting with outside of your Christian circles, what do you think they're thinking when they see some evangelical leaders not posting something, let's say, that says Black Lives Matter, but they're saying, "Hey, all lives matter,"
right.
something like that. What do you think they're thinking? Is that causing a stumbling block for them?
Oh, absolutely. Because we, unfortunately, again, right? It's about the intent. Like, what does someone mean when they use a particular statement, right? And if you just take the statement at face value, all lives matter. Absolutely. Who fights that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But is that what's being conveyed with that statement, right? Because why do you feel the need to say that when someone says Black Lives Matter? Because for many people, in their mind, when they hear Black Lives Matter, in their mind, it sounds like Black Lives Matter more,
Mm-hmm.
right? And most people who are saying that statement are not saying that at all. We're just saying we're human too.
Mm-hmm.
So when this knee-jerk reaction of all lives matter, it's almost like, no, I matter more, not you. But it's like, but you're kind of outing yourself when you do that because you're showing your prejudice by saying that. Now, again, you have to ask the person, well, what do you mean? You can't just take it at face value when someone says all lives matter. They might really be sincere, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But also, as a non black person, you got to be sensitive to how you say things because depending on what, like me saying it has a different connotation than what you say,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, as a white person, you have to be more sensitive. Like, but I didn't mean that you guys are better than me or whatever. I mean, I meant, I'm saying we're all equal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how the word is used a lot when it comes to non-black people, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we both have to like ask people, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? What do you like so that we don't talk over each other or past
Mhm.
each other.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that we can do is before we send a tweet or a Facebook post or whatever it's going to be, just think about what would someone who isn't the same as me think about this post or this thought. Like, what's their impression of what they're going to say? So, yeah, I think that's really important stuff. As we start to wind things down here, coming to the end, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm curious, like, for the Christian, for the typical Christian who isn't in an urban setting, who is just in the suburbs or wherever they may be, what should they be doing right now in this time? How do they stay biblically faithful and I'm assuming support their beliefs that all men are
Right.
equal and support the movement for equality? Like, what's some tips that you can give them
Right.
as we go through this tragedy?
Right. It's a multi-pronged attack, right? Um, as Christians, biblically speaking, we can ask and we can cry out and demand for justice, as long as we understand what justice is, right? One of the words that's used for justice in the Hebrew Bible is mishpat, right, which means to walk rectitude, to walk correctly, right? And God, that's not an attribute. That's what he is. That's part of his ontology, right? God always walks upright. So when we say we want justice, what we're saying is we want people to walk like God, to
Mm,
be the imager that you was created to be,
mm,
right? So, and as long as the Christian is in that mindset, yeah, we can ask for that. We can absolutely ask for that. Now, of course, people will say, well, the courts are corrupt, as if the courts weren't corrupt in the first century during Jesus' time. So you still can ask for justice. It's fine. Now the way you do it is your local politics. Know your councilman, get his email address. If you can meet with him, go to your local town hall meeting, get to know your constituents. Get to know the people in your neighborhood. You know, um, if you're somebody who's in social work or in psychiatry, you can actually go on patrol with the cops and do ride-bys with them. So you can understand how the cops think, and they can, and you can volunteer. You could do free seminars on trauma for a particular police department, so that they could be more equipped for these things. Right now, outside of that, there's a term, right? And depending on who says the term, could mean two different things, and that is preach the gospel.
mm,
Right now, for some people, when they say preach the gospel, they mean just shut up and go to church. Right? That's not what I mean. What I mean is the Great Commission. Right? Make disciples. No one's born following Jesus. You have to help make them. It's a process, and at the end of the Great Commission, it says, "And teaching them to obey." So once someone is saved, that's the beginning. That's not the end. You got to help someone grow in their faith now. To work out their salvation in fear and trembling. Because what doesn't, now that you're saved, great. Now, what does it mean to be righteous in your college or in your high school? Okay, you're married. What does it mean to be a righteous husband or wife? Right? If you're in politics, what does that look like being a righteous senator? We have to counsel and mentor people so that they could be more like the imager they were created to be. That's a process, right? So that when a white cop sees a black person and they're already handcuffed and completely subdued, they won't feel the need to kill them because they understand, because someone has taught them to obey the gospel, that black man is also an imager of God. And he might be he committed a crime. You're arresting him, but there's no need for him to die. You could take him in so he could get his due process.
Mm.
So it's the political aspect. Yeah, local government, get involved, serve, help your community to understand what it means to walk uprightly, and also from a theological perspective, teach the gospel and help people to obey it.
Yeah, a lot of good points you have there. Really good stuff. We're gonna start to wrap things up here. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise, Zach.
I'll give you a chance to share all your stuff. But before that, any closing thoughts you want to say before we start to end things here?
Oh man, it's so. For those of us who are doing apologetics, right? Just the gravity of the historicity of what I'm doing, what you're doing, is exciting and horrifying at the same time. You know what I mean? Because once you put something on the internet, it stays forever. Right? All the glitch, the pixelation, that's there forever. They're all going to see that, which is fine. But, it's just amazing that we live at such a time as this to do what we do, And I think it's important that people, especially young people like you, Zach, that you've taken the mantle of, I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to go in the front lines and I'm going to preach this gospel and I'm going to help teach and edify. I think it's so powerful. And I just believe that you're going to inspire so many other people to do likewise, So I appreciate you and what you're doing. And just keep it up and get better internet.
I need to figure that out. I think I need to get back. I need to get back to college where I have the good internet and not be at my parents' house for summer break. Man, I gotta say, if you're an inspiration to me as well, I hope to pick up the torch that you and all the urban apologists and all the other apologists are carrying right now, man. It's been a great conversation. Before we wrap things up, if people do not know who BK Apologist is, please plug all of your stuff. How can they follow you, support you?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. I'm going to put it in the private chat so you can put it in.
All right, I will do that.
All right, so
do it all right now.
I'm going to give you a quick.
And for those of you who are listening via podcast, he's just sending me links that are going to be in the live chat. And then I just can't search. And so, it's definitely worth follow and search.
Yeah, what's up, Nate 2D2? What's going on? It's my guy right there.
Nate is one of the coolest guys. I don't know if you follow Nate on Instagram, but he does these videos where he looks like he's like asleep and he's just singing. And I'm just like, I just love it. I can't get enough of it.
He's hilarious. So, so you can catch me, YouTube, of course, Twitter. I also sell, urban apologetic inspired T-shirts. All those links are, in fact, Nate 2D2, he's on it already. He's doing it. So, you know what I mean? So, yeah, brother, this was great, Zach. Thank you so much, man. If you ever need me to come back on, please feel free to reach out.
I appreciate it, man. And if you ever want me to talk about, I don't know, I'm always free, or I can always make the time. This is BK Apologist, everyone. Follow him, subscribe to him, support him on Patreon, do all that stuff. And if you're new here to Adherent Apologetics, I encourage you to subscribe but do your stuff with BK first, and then come back to us, subscribe. You can follow us on social media at AA Apologetics on Twitter, and then Adherent Apologetics on Facebook and Instagram, and now TikTok. You can support us at patreon.com/Adherent Apologetics. BK, this was a great conversation, my man. I thank you so much for it. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. God bless.
Peace.